Alright, I know some of you will probably not agree with the title of this video, but I have a good reason for having this opinion. As you all know, I can almost explain every story from any Zelda game backwards, and that's mostly because I make a lot of videos on them. And overall, the main stories, and even smaller ones tied to side quests, are well constructed and interesting. Although you will come across some flaws here and there, mostly plot holes and cheap solutions for problems. And in my opinion, the story of Age of Calamity is a good example of those two problems, especially the last one. So let's dive into all of this head first. And I have to warn you, there are spoilers in this video, and I will be quite fired up. Alright, first of all, let's get into the whole story of the game. Now, I won't discuss every detail, but to understand it all, I do have to talk about the major events. I mean, that does make sense, right? This is a video on the story of the game, and in my opinion, you can see the flaws when you look at it as a whole. At the beginning of the game, we can see that the Calamity has returned and the castle is in ruin thanks to it. But then we see the little egg boy emerge from a box after Zelda activated the triforce, and this small guardian ends up going back in time. Now, the first time I saw this, I was already disappointed, and that's because Nintendo usually doesn't use time travel correctly. While it can be used to make gameplay more fun and the story more interesting, you can also turn it into a confusing, plot hole-filled mess. However, I will do a video on that another time, because believe me, I got a lot to say about time travel in the Zelda games. Anyway, while I was disappointed because of it, I was willing to give it all a shot, because maybe they did use it correctly. Now in the end, a part of Calamity Ganon's malice also made its way through the portal, which certainly spiced some things up. Then we get to some boring stuff where Link fights off a horde of enemies, they find the Egg Boy, and then they go to the Hateno Ancient Tech Lab so Purah and Robbie can take a look at it. In the end, they decode the thing and reveal to Zelda the devastation that will occur if the Calamity is not stopped. After this, Zelda and Link go to each of the races in order to find pilots for the Divine Beasts. And as soon as that was done, Zelda focused on unlocking her power, with some minor stuff happening here and there, like working on the Divine Beasts and fighting the Yiga clan. So far, nothing too surprising. We all kind of expected stuff like this happening in a prequel. And in the later chapters, we saw more pretty predictable stuff, like Link and the gang obtaining the Master Sword, the new main villain called Astor, and the Champion Ceremony. Then we got some more drama between Zelda and her father, some Yiga drama, as well as activating the Sheikah Towers throughout the kingdom. Then we have a fun battle at Ikala Citadel, which has been taken over by the Yiga clan, and later on they also find out that the Egg Boy's records indicate that Calamity Ganon will return on Zelda's 17th birthday. So in general, the story is what you would expect from a Breath of the Wild prequel. In general, the whole story is similar to the memories from that game. The only big difference is that the Egg Boy kind of spoils to the heroes what's gonna happen in the future. And the malice has arrived earlier. And as you can imagine, in the end things completely changed because of that. After this, Zelda goes to the Spring of Wisdom, while her father makes arrangements for evacuations, as well as deploying the Divine Beasts in order to defeat Calamity Ganon. And then, it all goes wrong. Robbie and Purah get captured by the Yiga spies, Ganon arrives, and the Sheikah Tech is taken over. Now, this is what everyone basically expected from the game's story. But then, something happens that, in my opinion, completely ruins the game's story. Because the little Egg Boy saves the day by suddenly opening a new set of time portals, and because of that, the heroes realize that there is still a chance to stop the Great Calamity. And thanks to these portals, all the new pilots of the Divine Beasts seen in Breath of the Wild appeared in the game, saving each and every one of the original heroes. For example, the blow that would have killed Mipha in the original timeline gets blocked by Sidon, who bursts out of one of the time portals summoned by the little Egg Boy. And stuff like this happens to every champion. All of them get saved by the people who would replace them in the future. Now this is where Nintendo completely lost me. I'm already not a big fan of time travel because many do it wrong, and here Nintendo proves to me once again that they can't use it properly either.
But Wily, what are you on about? It's epic that the new pilots come and save them! Especially Sidon and Mipha, it's so cool and wholesome!
Now, while my viewer voice skit is a meme for sure, I bet some people have this opinion and will tell me this in the comments. But to be honest, again, in my opinion, this is the cheapest and most low-level fan service way of solving the issue the main heroes face. You know what? It's so disappointing and bad that this is the most horrible use of time travel by Nintendo I have ever seen. But I will be honest, I've never played the first Hyrule Warriors. In the end, a lot of what the heroes did doesn't really matter, and that's because the Grand Saviors just got wished into existence. Which could have also happened at any time, which is certainly a plot hole. And yes, I know it's because Zelda's tear dropped on top of him, but still that could have happened at any point in the story, and I also think it's pretty cliche. Heck, he could have even brought over more people with those portals. It all doesn't matter thanks to them. Now, do you remember what I said earlier in this video? You know, about Nintendo's storytelling flaws? Although you will come across some flaws here and there, mostly plot holes and cheap solutions for problems. This is a great example of Nintendo solving their problems with cheap tricks, all while acting that it's some sort of epic and cool thing. In a way, this reminds me of how they solved their problems when it comes to the story of the franchise when they released the timeline. Here they thought of something that could work, and then ruined it by adding a third timeline branch where Link just died. Which has a lot of issues, as you can imagine, because the hero of time could have died at almost any point. And when it comes to parallel universes, which the Zelda timeline is a great example of, there should be a million other alternate timelines, because Link could have lost to Ganon or one of his minions in any of the games. I bet the story of Age of Calamity is also one of those parallel universe things, but that doesn't mean it makes for a good story. Personally, I find it a lazy way of doing things. I know stuff like this is quite normal for a Warriors game, but it doesn't mean that it fits with the Zelda franchise or makes for a good story. Now in the end, history is changed and all the heroes are saved, which is pretty handy as you can imagine. And it's then used at every point in the story in order to make it work. For example, when Akala Citadel is attacked and about to fall, a divine beast just comes around the corner and so they win. Now in the end, they run around the place for a while going after Astor in order to stop him from reviving the Great Calamity. Eventually he succeeds in doing so, and some other stuff happens like the evil Egg Boy coming around the corner and our good Egg Boy becoming evil as well. Then some other stuff happens, you know, the usual. Ganondorf becomes whole and goes full power, our good Egg Boy sacrifices himself, and the heroes beat the evil monster together. Nothing too shocking if I have to be honest. Maybe even cliché. But hey, that's nothing new for the Zelda franchise. And so, as the sun rises, the people of Hyrule rejoice, seeing that the Great Calamity is defeated, and the other heroes return to their own future. And so the champions say their farewells to their descendants, and Zelda vows to treasure their friendship for all time. That's how it all ends. And when I saw that, I was really disappointed. And that's not because I think the time travel in this game was a cheap solution. In general, I just expected more. A lot of people were disappointed when it came to the story of Breath of the Wild. Sure, it wasn't all bad, but it was missing context and especially more time with the old champions. And I thought this game was gonna be a perfect companion piece for it, where you first get to see the events before the attack, become attached to the characters, and then get to experience the real horror. But in the end, we sort of got this, but not completely, because they had to make room to develop the Egg Boy and anything he brought to the table. And we also didn't really relive the horrors or got all the answers we wanted when it comes to the final hours of Calamity Ganon's attack. In the end, we got something that resembles some sort of fan-made game, where fan service and cheap tricks are there to save the day. And what's even more awful is that they had the chance to really let the old and new champions connect in an interesting way. But in the end, the interactions between them are predictable and pretty shallow. So that was also disappointing. And to be honest, the same goes for our Egg Boy. Personally, I don't really care for him, and his role in the story is only significant because of his power. But for some reason, people really loved him because it's something new and the thing looks quite cute. And I do agree on that. They should make a plushie version. In general, I can see the potential that this game had, but they just didn't get everything out of it and even made some bad decisions. However, I do think the game is fun and worth buying, so believe me, I do not hate it whatsoever. However, I will be honest with it. I can certainly critique it, and I want you to do the same. Let me know in the comments what you think of the game. And in time, I will do a video on time travel in the franchise as a whole. So be sure to subscribe, then you won't miss it.